So one of the options, again, going back to the memo, and thank you, Trustee Sassen, is there is a statute, 70 ICLS 705/16D, that affords to fire districts to transfer property between the fire districts. So we could, up to 60 acres, Attorney Weiler could speak better to it than I could, but the statute says that you can move property between districts as long as both of them adopt an ordinance. The transfer would happen. Where this idea generates from, and again, why it's not the solution I would recommend, but it is an option, is it's the two sides of a coin. We need to grow to meet our service demands, which is what we're talking about, where the other side of that coin is we need to shrink our demands to fit what we have, which would involve a tremendous undertaking, which would have an impact on us financially. So it would have to be a scaled project. So in order to do that, those areas that are the farthest away from our staff station, we would enter into conversations with our neighboring fire districts, in this case Carroll Stream and West Chicago, to transfer property, if they agreed, transfer property from us to them. The impact on our citizens would be the tax rates would increase because our equalized assessed valuation would drop, but we would be able to transfer those people to another fire district where they might have a station closer. It might help our call volume not rise as fast. Another one of the downsides for those people is they would adopt that new fire district's tax rate as well. So in the case of a community out on the northeast side of our district that's paying, $360 to us currently at our tax rate for a $300,000 home, would go up to $720 were they to move to Carroll Stream. So there would be impacts a lot, but it would be an effort to put them somewhere where they could get service faster and scale down the amount of calls that we have to try and shrink our district. It's not a particularly good idea, but again, going back to my analogy with the coin, there's two sides to the coin, and if we can't grow to meet our needs or our demands, we would have to shrink our demands. But that I'm suspect whether it would actually work, but it would be something to try. It would be an option to explore, but I don't think that's a really long-term sustainable option. But of the two,
basically,
that is one.
You're talking about areas like the Klein Creek area or areas way south, like Mack Road and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So So the areas up near, Gary and Geneva, Mission Court, Klein Creek, Timber Creek, and then to the south, that stuff off of Mack and White Oak and those areas down there, moving them to other districts to.
Okay. It's just, I wasn't aware of that statute, so that was kind of an interesting.
So yeah, included in the packet was that statute and an article. This is actually happening to a neighbor to the west of us. West Chicago, effective January 1st, I believe, is assuming a subdivision from another fire protection district, Fox River Grove, under that same series of conditions. So that's happening effective January 1. So it is something that is done and has been done. But.
And it looked like the residents in that article got together a petition. Does that petition hold any water?
No,
I know they're voters, but
there were politicians involved. There was petitions. People attended meetings. There were all of that. But at the end of the day, the statute dictates the fact that if the two bodies agree on the transfer happens.
that's kind of how I read it. But I wanted to just get clarification.
So I would actually.
So
You have the statute provides for certain notices to go out to all of the residents. Okay, so it's a pretty big undertaking.
Well, and it has to
Okay.
be certified notices too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
So you have to figure out who they are and notify everybody. And the idea of that is to give people the opportunity to object to it. The problem is that once the objections do not bind either party, either of the two districts who are collaborating to achieve that transfer. So even though there may be some upheaval, you know, both boards can just say, no, we're going to do
Party A
it.
and Party B agree,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
whatever the
Exactly.
residents decide, it doesn't
Yes.
matter. Okay.
Yeah. And so in discussing this with Steve, you know, we've recognized some of the shortcomings of that plan, okay? And that is what we really pay for here is 80% preparedness, 20% execution. So even if you take off service demands, it doesn't relieve you of the necessity of having this minimum staffing that we would have to, you know, if we reduced ourselves to a quarter of our size, it would still cost just as much to be prepared for one emergency as it would be, you know, for 100. And so that's really what we're paying for is preparedness. The other limitation of that proposal is that 60 acres has to be all contiguous, and that you couldn't just take maybe just one resident that you would like to remove from your district, and you couldn't do that. So, so we'd so there's problems with that, and typically the reason that statute was interjected is that there are times in which, you know, fire protection districts in the rural areas are huge, okay? And you really can't predict where development is going to be. And so sometimes the development happens in such a way that you have these islands of activity that are far away from their own district's facilities, but closer to another. And that this allowed for the idea that when there was development of about a 60-acre parcel, that you could negotiate where that protection is going to happen. That's really not our situation, because our contiguous areas are all pretty much developed. But it is a solution that could interest other districts. And you know what happens with that when you start to consume yourself, you're cutting off revenue.
Right.
Okay, that you actually need to do the minimal staffing to have it somewhere else. So it's a hell of a dilemma.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the fact that we're discussing that really kind of shows where we are, because we really don't have very many places to turn, and this is one of the areas that does address one of the very serious sides of the coin that the chief is addressing. You know, he's got a big job to figure out how he's going to.
Conversation that should happen.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. This is a conversation that should happen with Carroll Stream and West Chicago. And, you know, if there is interest in that from that point, then,
Well,
you know.
I don't know if we're at that point yet.
But you know,
I don't know.
Here's the irony.
We're not far away, so
Here's
No,
the,
we're not.
it's time to start the conversation sooner than later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about this for a bargain? We give you 60 acres, and we lose $300 per residence. You gain $900 per
Yeah.
residence. Who wouldn't take that bargain?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, and I think you misquoted that difference. It's not $700. I think with their rate, which is close to 9, would be $900.
Yeah, I did miss. If their
Would be-
current rate is 76, it would be $760 times 720. They're 920.
The other side, West
Yeah,
Chicago,
would be
900. So who wouldn't strike that bargain?
Right. I think it is a conversation that should be had. We owe it to, it's our responsibility to try to do everything that's possible, no matter how far outside we would want it to be, we have to examine every possibility, whether we like it or not.
Right.
Exactly.
So I think that, you know, Steve, whenever you get a chance, which I know that's
In your
difficult,
spare time.
in your spare time.
Maybe on a Sunday afternoon?
I've,
Yeah. And just as a, see if that's something they'd be interested in, then we could always pursue it officially later. But if Carroll Stream and West Chicago flat out say, no, we want nothing to do with that, then that's,
I doubt that will be the case.
I doubt that'd be the case too, but it's certainly, and it's obviously not something you put right on the top priority, but if you're sitting down with one of their chiefs,
I think it's a chatting point.
It's a chatting
something-
point at this point,
It's
yes.
something to chat about.
exactly. Thank you for all your efforts there, Steve.
Yeah, really